Welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, criminal court, and other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com, and they are on audio as well. I have a brand new guest on. Her name is Nicole Amill. She's a mom of three, and she has two adult children and one 9-year-old. She moved to Lorain, Ohio from Bronx, New York on February 24th, 2015. She came to Ohio with almost $100,000 to invest in real estate and have passive income while teaching her children how to be self-sustaining and get a closer relationship to God and be a service for God. Now, she was raised Jehovah's Witness and led by the Holy Spirit in September of 2015 till her baptism in 2017 with a different religion before her mother passed away of cancer. Now, Nicole gave love a chance with the wrong person and quickly found out what trauma bonds were, what abuse truly is, what healing and growth is, and how to let go and just let God. And according to Nicole, it's been one heck of a ride. She escaped her abuser only to be dragged back into the courts and basically be forced to lay down while not only her abuser kicks and verbally abuses her, but also all his enablers and friends in the court verbally abuse and kick her around and ambush her. Now, while she learned being in this nightmare, who is who and what is what? And this is what brings Nicole to me today. Now, she's ready to expose the truth because the truth will set us free. And she prays to help raise awareness and to be a resource for people to reach out and actually be the change that we need. And she's a whistleblower. And she needs to stand up for the ones who have lost their voice, been silenced through threat, and who have been living in fear of retaliation. And this is her story. I totally welcome you, Nicole Amill, to Slam the Gavel podcast. So tell me, this is just, we're all going through this. And when you started out, did you have, did you have a lawyer, and when did your family court case start?
Okay, so I ended up getting divorced in 2020. We had a dissolution of marriage where we agreed on everything. And so basically it was cut and dry. It was even during the pandemic, we were able to get it done quickly. We went half on the attorney to file it, and that was it. We agreed on everything. Um, when we did our dissolution of marriage, we agreed that I have full custody with decision making and that he was to have visitation and pay child support.
Mhm.
Now, the agreement that we had was very cordial because I came here from New York City to accomplish some things. So, you know, with that said, I was making it to the point where I pretty much had a 5-year plan. And so with the 5-year plan, I would be taking him off of child support and I would have been fine financially. He should have been fine financially. And so our child would have been okay. So I agreed to stay here in Ohio where I don't have any friends or family. I mean, I have friends at a church now and everything, of course, but my original roots are not here. But I agreed to stay here because he's not very healthy, my ex-husband. So I said, I don't ever want to be too far away and my son think he could have had more time with his dad if something happens or so that was my logical reasoning with staying here. And my other two, like I said, my other two were are adults. So basically I was just going to move forward with my plan. And everything was going well. But 2021, things started to change.
How did they change? What precipitated?
Well, as soon as I got approved for a home to purchase another home, um, I got met with you know, paperwork from the court stating that he wanted a certain, visitation schedule. Basically, he was asking for less time. Um, yes, I said
Okay.
that. He was asking for less time because the way we had it is we had like the basic schedule. I didn't put much mind to it because he's a barber. So he has an open schedule. He makes his schedule however he pleases. And I'm in the medical field, so I'm more mandated.
Mhm.
So the way we put it together that we agreed on is that he was to have pretty much open visitation. So if my son got up and said, Mommy, I want to go have breakfast with my dad, call your dad. I had him have his own little iPod touch. He can FaceTime his dad. And he had open communication. So that's pretty much how I did it with my first two from my first marriage.
Mhm.
So I pretty much treated it uniform like that. And so I thought it was going to be okay. But when I got served the paperwork, it was an interesting scenario. So that's where everything started just snowballing into what it is today.
And then you started out with a lawyer. What happened there?
I didn't have a lawyer. I didn't have a
Okay.
lawyer. I had the lawyer that we chose to file the paperwork for us for our
Oh, okay.
dissolution marriage was a neutral lawyer that we paid half. We went half on paying him the fees to do the neutral. The way the documents are is that I guess only one party can be mentioned as though the person's representing one party, but it was a dissolution of marriage, which is different
Mhm.
because we agreed on everything. So it's contractual. So basically we just agreed on everything and the attorney filed it and that was it. But
Mhm.
when the other paperwork came, I was actually pro se for a while.
Oh, so I was a pro se too, and it's difficult because you're putting up with more verbal abuse. How did you handle being a pro se?
Um, I had no fear of, again, I don't have the spirit of fear. I didn't go into it thinking, oh my goodness, it's a court document, because at the end of the day, I'm a logical person. I'm a rational person. So I went in there like these are humans just like me. We just need to hash this out. And from the agreement that we already agreed upon, I thought it would be kind of like, okay. But the problem that was happening there is that my ex-husband started leaving my child in the care of his girlfriend at the time to go to work. So what happened was we kind of on our family wizard we were communicating and he basically was telling me that he wanted a certain schedule and I said, "Well, let's just stick to the schedule that's since he started making a fuss about it. I said, let's just stick to the schedule that's in our dissolution of marriage and because I'm a mandated worker, so we're fresh coming out of the pandemic. Things are starting. I said, they might call me in 4 hours early, keep me 4 hours later. It's things like that that I have to be at their beck and call. Whereas you're just a barber, and you can. He goes, well, I have schedules too, and I said, I understand that, but your son goes to work with you. That was the whole purpose of helping you get through barber school is so that you can take our son and teach him a trade.
Hmm.
And that was going to be the plan. That was what we were doing. But I started having a life and it started trickling into things. So he was like mandating certain times and dates. No, I want him. And I said, I can't do that. I got to go to work. I work weekends, like things like that. So
Hmm.
that's where that came up. So he told me, well, I'm just going to leave, my girlfriend babysitting. I said, if it's your visitation schedule and you trust this woman, that's between you and your girlfriend and what you do I can't dictate your life. I can't tell you what to do.
Hmm.
Um, and I said, just know that, I hope that you trust her and that we can all trust her. That's it. Like, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Everybody moves on.
Hmm.
And so with that said, my son started coming home and acting inappropriate. So after a while, so what I did was I put him in counseling because I just thought maybe he stumbled across something in my ex-husband's phone or you know what I mean? Like I'm giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. And so I put him in counseling so that way he has this neutral, safe person. If something's happening, it'll come out. If it's not, he's great. We're all good,
Hmm.
because I'm not going to fight with my abuser, obviously.
Hmm.
So it started coming out that something was going on, I guess. And so I ended up finding a video that was in the deleted files of the iPod one day.
Hmm.
And it was young children. So of course it's, clothes on, whatever the case may be. But it was just obvious that they're not being supervised. And when I played it, I didn't know it was loud. So my son looked at me. He was like, and I said, Papi, what's this? And he goes, well, mommy, and he starts saying, and I was like, oh, okay. So I called my ex-husband and I'm like, hey, he's been acting out. I brought it to your attention a couple of times, and it just so happens that he's getting it from your girlfriend's son. And, so can we all meet together, sit
Mhm.
down, find out where he's getting it from, and that way we're all on the same page and then we keep moving forward.
Mhm.
Mm. The first response I got was, from this point on, contact my attorney,
Ah,
in writing. And then his girlfriend called me and said, from this point on, direct all your concerns to your ex-husband and don't call me no more. What is a mother to do?
right.
Correct. So what I did
Oh,
was I went and filed to get order of protection so that my child's not left in her care anymore. Just
right.
like any other place. If it was happening in a daycare, same thing. You know what I mean? Switch daycares, or the person would have got fired or something. You know what I mean? Any little thing. So I'm trying to navigate this as normal as possible. Um, my son seemed to be okay. I said, I understand child development. I understand that kids go through things. They're close in age. You never know, so, I did have that talk with my son and my oldest children, who are adults. We all sat down, and then I participated in his counseling, where the counselor was teaching him about his body parts, boundaries, what not to do, what to do, so he started learning all of the names and words, proper
Mhm.
identifiers of things. And so all of that was kind of like weaponized against me, that my son is using certain words that he shouldn't be using. Well, he's in counseling. He's learning the proper way to articulate his feelings and what he's going through, and to set firm, healthy boundaries. I don't know what to tell you, but I take my raising my child very seriously. I'm not
Mhm.
going to tell my child hush, and that's it. Like, so that's been a whole thing. So basically they couldn't do anything about the order of protection because they stated that she didn't touch my son. So it wasn't like a thing for her, but that the kids were close in age. So basically they said that she failed to protect him or supervise him in her care, and that the child was the problem. And so when I went over to family court, they reverted it back to family court, making it a family court issue. But these people are not our family, you know what I mean? So basically made it a family court issue, and that's when the
Ah,
conflict started happening, because now he knows how something's hurting me, something's bothering me, and so let the Hunger Games begin. So it was just the
mhm.
whole, you know, the attorney. It was funny because me and his attorney went back and forth a couple times, and I told him, it's very easy to point the finger and blame the one person that didn't abandon their post.
Mhm.
I said, I don't know what to tell you guys, but I'm a person about preventative things. If you see it happen, just prevent it from happening. Let's do everything
Right.
we can. Now, we wouldn't have even had to go anywhere in that direction if we would all just sat down with the kids and discussed and said, no, this is not okay. You
And
understand what I'm
talked
saying?
it
So
out.
yeah, just talk it out, because my father was raised in a foster home, first of all, since he was 5. Him and his siblings were put in a foster home. And from the foster home, he went to the military. And, so he has people he calls family that are not blood related. We're all about extended families. We're all about, you know, our family is so blended and so, open-minded to those things that we don't even really put much, so yes, I didn't work out with my ex-husband. That's fine.
Mhm.
I pray that you find the best woman for you, that we all win, because then our son's happy. And it's just I don't have these whole, like, a lot of times my sisters tell me, you think like a man, you act like, because I don't really think like a normal, I guess you would say normal, typical woman, all in the emotions all the time.
You're logical.
And yeah, and I'm also military trained, when my family's all military and police, you know what I mean? So
Oh,
my whole
wow.
family's
Okay.
NYPD. My cousin's she retired detective in New York City. She was on a episode of 20, I think it was 2020 or 60 Minutes. They did a segment on her because she did transit police in Coney Island. And
Mm.
as a beautiful young lady, she dressed up as a teenager, like she was in high school, and she was able actually to stop a gang one day. She did get shot. She was in the newspaper, but she was like my hero. My dad was my hero when he put on the NYPD outfit. My mom was Capitol Police during session. My uncle was an assemblyman. So I'm very well versed, and that's why I don't get intimidated in these environments, because I was kind of raised all around it. I was expecting what I didn't learn, what I didn't know, and I learned the hard way, is that this is not a court of law. And because I was raised military police, you know, I was expecting the law to be the foundation and logical explanations of things to be just accepted. But instead, the more logical you are, the more crazy they call you.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And so it was a very interesting roller coaster ride. But to say the least, I mean, I ended up um, through the process, we got safeguards. So I was pro se, and as a pro se litigant, I was able to get a lot of safeguards. So the magistrate kept giving chance after chance, and every time he didn't follow the orders, he was given more safeguards. So basically, they said, "Hey, if you can't supervise your child 100%, forfeit your visitation."
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've been taking him to work with you this whole time, and that was the whole setup, like you can maneuver your schedule around your child. So that was a logic from the magistrate, which I could appreciate. So, but then that wasn't happening. It was coming back that my son was telling, his safe person, the counselor, or whatever, that, whatever. So he was like, okay, well, guess what? You gotta, so he was buckling down on him. And the more and more things were happening, the more, so we ended up with the zero contact between the children.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that, it ended up, it progressed into that. And my ex-husband asked me to sign off on arrears. I signed off on arrears. He asked me to lower the child support. I lowered the child support. Because I said, you're going against what we already agreed upon. This is not even a thing for me. Money is never going to be um, a priority for me when it comes to raising children, because I understand that what one lacks, the other one gains.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of the fact, like, children need support. They need loved ones. They need to know that they have a foundation and close relationships with everybody. And somebody has something to, offer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about money. It's about raising our children. So with my first husband, when my daughter was having like issues or acting out, whatever the case may be, I would call my first husband and be like, hey, your daughter needs to spend some time with you, because I think she's going through something right now that I think she wants her dad.
Mm-hmm.
So he would be like, okay, send her. But my first husband also had a really wonderful wife.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I communicated more with her actually than I did with my first husband. So it was like, so it really did a village. So this is what I'm expecting to come from my second husband, my ex-husband, because we're older. So I'm thinking, if we could have figured this out in our 20s and 30s with my first husband, I'm expecting everybody to just be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we're older. Like, it should have been more easier,
Right.
to maneuver.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. As soon as the attorneys and everybody found some kind of like spark, they just flames. They throw gasoline and they start like fanning it. And
And they
I was
don't
just like,
stop.
they don't stop. And the more hype they got my ex-husband's girlfriend, they got her real hyped, and she's like, oh, like, and then so that's where that third party started coming in, and it got real messy. And I'm still sitting here today, like, if they were to call me and be like, I'm sorry, or let's sit down and let's get rid of these, I follow Jesus, and I'm on a different way of thinking. I've grown a lot. I've learned to let go and let God. I've learned to, but I'm not soft. I'm saved, but I'm not soft. You can't just let things, I'm not a rug.
Right,
so
right.
so you have to stay proactive in everything and make sure you assert your rights and stand firm and steadfast. But yeah, the ex-wife, the ex-husband has a girlfriend. Then they decided to get married a year and a half into that safeguard, and motioned the court to vacate the zero contact because of the father's circumstances.
Hmm.
So I know of case law right in Cuyahoga County where mother lost her parental rights for putting her relationship before her child.
Hmm.
And so with that said, I was kind of like, okay, well, I mean, it's safeguards for our child. So I did get an attorney. I ended up getting an attorney a couple of times. Kind of like I treated like double dutch when I'm kind of worn out. I was like,
Right.
here, you go in. I'm tapping out real quick. You go and
Yeah.
argue with them because it's too much. It's too much for me because I am not a person. One, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. Two, um, I witnessed my mom. She was a little firecracker when growing up, and my dad's the calm one, very reserved because of his military training and he was training to be a Olympic boxer. His patience is like of Jesus.
Yeah.
I always say his patience is like Jesus. Just keep going. And so I could honestly say I've only seen my father cry twice, and I've only seen my dad lose his not even lose his cool. He was even cool when he lost his cool. He's
Yeah.
kind of like just that type of person. And so maybe once I seen my dad upset. Like I don't really, like I don't really remember. Um, he's the type of person he was like, you know what, I'll let you cool off and he'll leave. Like, think about that. Sit there and in your anger.
Yeah.
Whereas my mom was like, I want to fight. Da, da,
Yeah.
da, da, da. The Mighty Mouse. So my dad was not with that. So yeah, growing up, I didn't like that my mom was that type of person. It kind of like turned me off. Like if
Mhm.
that's the way women are, I don't want to be like. So
Yeah.
I kind of started becoming a tomboy because and mimicking my father because I just thought that was more closer to Bible principles.
Mhm.
His demeanor versus my mother's demeanor. Um, Even though my mom, she was a good person too, but you always got to pick and choose your battles when you have both your parents. You
Mhm.
know, um, and so I always just went to the Bible for what I was conflicted about. And I was like, okay, we'll just listen to Jesus on this one because both my parents,
Yeah. They're
I'm not
trying.
getting in the mix of that one.
Yeah.
So I always have balance. I'm one of I have what, five sisters? Let me see, let me count. Because my dad has three. My mom had, yeah, five siblings, sisters. So all from different marriages and stuff. So that's why we're so open.
Mhm.
Like I literally could be like, "Oh, that's your mom," to my sister. Hi, you know what I mean? Like we're
Yeah.
not like, and my mom when she was alive was like, "Oh, tell your sister she's more than welcome to come visit," even though it was my dad's daughter. That's the way we are. So that's why I'm kind of still in shock over the way this is going down. I guess I expected more from
Hmm.
them. I am familiar with my ex-husband's wife. He was her barber for about 4 years. So she's not nobody new. I mean, and the way she carries herself, presents herself, I was like, yeah, this woman could be, she could be good.
Hmm.
That's really where I was going with that. Like, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, she sounds educated, she carries herself well, but so I was really hoping for the best, but as time progressed, my son would come home very upset
Mm.
and be like, "Mommy, they're not like you," and would say things like, you know, "You never talk bad about them," and "Why do they say bad things about you, Mommy?" And
Mm.
and it is certain things that and I was just like, I can't speak for other people, baby. I could only do what I'm supposed to do.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry that that happened. I don't know what to tell you.
Mhm.
And so it was like, it was those things that I try to navigate. And then, but of course, I have adult children. So they also helped a lot too. They were like, come on, let's go out, let's go play, let's go to the trampoline park, let's go.
Mhm.
They'll take them to the toy store, or, you know, so it's definitely a village
Mhm.
here with me. And so I just was hoping for much better, but
Oh.
as this progressed and got worse, it became more of I'm fighting custody with that woman.
Oh.
They're
Yeah.
using it's the whole fight is that woman, and they're using the parental rights of my ex-husband, and he moved in with her, so her house is paid off. They're making me pay these guardian ad litem fees and enforcing them and doing all kinds of stuff. Meanwhile, his house is worth almost $200,000 and it's paid off. So why do I have the guardian ad litem fees? Like, it's things like that. That's just, I do have an investment property, I do, but I have a mortgage on this, you know what I
Right.
mean? And so they didn't balance out anything. They just inflated my income.
Oh,
Ever since they transferred custody, it's just been like an ongoing, I got your kid, you got to pay this, you know? And
oh.
so I was learning, but I did in the process of the modification of visitation, I thought because we had safeguards that was it. The
Mhm.
modification of visitation is the only thing we need. But they put a specific guardian ad litem on my case. And I already knew about her because I was actually training to become a CASA.
Mhm.
So I found that, I was like, you know what, this might be a thing. I can help other kids or be a neutral person to help people navigate and come up with a good determination for children. So I found out about Voices for Children and I started the CASA training. And yeah, that's when it really got real because I started learning who's who, what's what, the walls talk.
Oh yeah.
Um, they say they don't discuss cases, but they do. They do outside of that
Yeah.
courthouse. And so with that said, I started learning a lot. And so I kind of like my heart sunk when his attorney requested a certain guardian ad litem, and I said, "Okay, I see where this is going."
Mhm, mhm.
And so yeah,
That's so
that's been.
important what you said because they all play in the same sandbox.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's at the expense of the children and the parents.
It's something that I noticed that after speaking to many families and people actually contacting me, um, it's not a coincidence that these cases are high conflict when there's assets involved or all of these parents have like, oh, I have my master's degree in this and I make six figures, or I have a home, or I'm running a construction company, I'm this, so it's always like something where there's something to gain out of it to keep the conflict going. It's definitely profitable.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Well,
Whereas I know others that, for example, I know one case where neither parent has any assets and they open and close that case quick. Here, yeah, you got visitation. Here, yeah, you got, because the divorce is done. Boop, and I'm like, oh,
that's how it
interesting.
goes.
Hmm.
What was the most frustrating? I mean, besides that attorney requesting a specific guardian ad litem, what else followed?
Um, Well, first off, his attorney was her attorney, his girlfriend's attorney, when I took her to court. So that's a conflict of interest because he represented both of them in two separate cases, in two
Hmm.
separate courts. So that in itself, he was kind of upset that he didn't get the verdict that he wanted. So that trickled over, that animosity trickled over into my family case because he felt some type of way that I stood up to him. And apparently he's the Goliath of Lorain, and nobody sticks up to him without being torn to shreds. So, I remember sitting across the table from him, and when he started going off on me, I said, "You know what? I can see why my ex-husband hired you. You're only an extension of him, and the only difference between him and you is that you haven't punched me in my face yet." And he
Oh,
sat back and he just started rocking in his chair, very upset. And he's like, "Well, I've been doing this a lot longer than you have." And
oh,
I said, "Well, that's funny because I've never done this before in my life. But thank you for the compliment."
good girl.
And so that's where we were just like, back and forth. And so the magistrate even told him, calm down before I called the sheriff. And I said, please do, because if you do call the sheriff up here, I'll be sure to file a police report on how you guys are treating me.
Hmm.
And then everybody just got, whatever. And I'm just like, why are we doing this? Like,
Hmm.
there's safeguards in place. I'm not trying to fight with anybody. I literally just want the best for my son. And you guys are blaming me because every time he throws a rock, he hides his hand. And I'm the one standing there, not abandoning my post. So,
So when this attorney got all upset, uh, they still didn't call in the sheriff to. stand there in the room?
No, they just said that to try to get him to calm down. I mean, they
Wow.
do know that this attorney is off a little unhinged, so they try to always like tell him to just chill out, like even when I was going to, trying to get the safeguards so she's not babysitting anymore,
Mhm.
even in that court, the judge had to kind of like reprimand him and tell him, you need to calm down in my court because he threw papers at me on the desk and he was like, consider yourself served. And I was just like, oh, really? Okay. That's how you feeling? And then the judge was like, you need to calm down in my court, and he was like, okay, okay, okay. But they just let him, he's just like, honestly, like it's an attorney that just throws tantrums.
Mhm.
That's, I'm not gonna say he's not a good attorney. He's definitely a seasoned, almost mafia looking.
Ah.
you know? But again, it's his demeanor is no different than what I was raised in. I was raised running around the Capitol in Albany, New York, with a bunch of politicians. So
Mhm.
it's really I, that was not a thing for me. I just want to stay focused on my son the whole time, and so that's my priority.
I think a lot of people need to know how to handle these attorneys that behave badly.
Document, document. And I started taking a paralegal course because I needed help. I was like, maybe this could help me navigate a little better when I'm pro se. So I started taking, and I was mind blown at the first classes that we took. Because right off rip, they tell you courts act as banks and children are collateral.
Mhm.
I was like, what did you just say? I was like, no, and they explain how, how children will be transferred to custody to the person that's paying the most money and keeps paying. And then, so I'm learning this stuff and I'm like, these people actually go into this and take the bar exam,
Mm.
knowing, and maybe, attorneys go in there, they're like, I could change it. I could change this. I can make a difference, but when you come across, you can't go against your own bar members. So then what they taught me in the paralegal course is that the oath that attorneys take it's to the court first before the client.
Mhm. Mhm.
So a lot of people don't know that. So when they go and they take the bar and they take that oath, it's like you can't go against your people. So what are you really going to accomplish? Everybody that I can see that has gone against the actually stood up for their client has been retaliated against. That's the history of everything from doctors to lawyers to counselors to, they're really upset and they get upset with the people who stand up for the rights of the people. And so I think that needs to be addressed because the bar wasn't even a thing, but it started in 1930. The bar is younger than my grandmother.
Mm.
So it's not even that far off to where we need to change this. It needs to be addressed that nobody should hold that much power
Um,
over the people. I mean, me personally, with my family being military, my grandpa fought in World War II. I mean, I'm offended that they would even allow this to happen as a military child of a military family. Everything we fought for, everything that they sacrificed is in vain
mhm.
because we're being infiltrated from within. So how do you address that? Which I can see it a little bit of a change happening now, but you know, um, but yeah, I'm pretty I'm in shock at stuff that I was learning throughout this process.
Right. I mean, the thing that really shocked me was the Title 4D funding,
Mm-hmm.
which has
Mm-hmm. And
been
4E, 4D, 4E. Mm-hmm.
MD, B, D, and E.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep.
Oh my goodness. Uh,
Any funding, because now they got the kinship funding, the third party interest funding, the guardianship funding. And what I found out that I noticed from my observation of all this is that they get the funding first and then they create the clients.
mm,
And so from my understanding, it's supposed to be a problem first and you bring a solution, then you get the funding. But if they're not following the original outline of the funding that they already have, why give them more? So it's like, again, that takes me back to I go back to the Bible and I read it. And it's like, you got to be a good steward and show that you're a good steward of what you have now before we start giving you more. And then, so, but they don't do that. They just don't.
No, it's really a shame that when they say the best interest of the child, it's actually cha-ching interest of the child.
It's cha-ching, and it's also depends on who is defining and interpreting best interest of the child. See, for example, I mean, let's think about certain cultures. I mean, certain cultures have, like, what is it? The bar mitzvahs are 12 years old.
Mhm.
So, if you think about that culture and what they do, so then it's, let's say the person who is in that culture is the one presiding over, he's gonna not gonna find no problem making a child into a man at 12. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or whatever the case may be. There's different cultures and different things that it depends on their perspective, their culture that they grew up in, their environment in which they believe. I mean, we don't know if the person is minor attracted.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're up there saying, oh, that's nothing. Just like Richard Gardner said, this should be normal. This should be, that's just, children are provocative. They asked for it. Those type of dangerous perspective. So honestly, I mean, if we're thinking about the best interest of the child, did the person making that determination on the stand take a psychological before they became that?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because we need to know
We need to know their
what is their best interest definition and
right
interpretation. Mhm.
because their psych evals, the judge's psych eval is important because they have issues that they have to deal with that happened in their childhood. So they don't take it out on you or another litigant and their child.
Well, if you think about it, like Florida's a right to work state, right?
Mhm.
So if you're wearing purple and you go into work and his ex-wife was wearing purple the day she cheated on him, you're done. You're fired, and you can't even go and ask for, like, so those type of things, just to use as an example. I mean, you come into the courthouse and you don't know what's going to trigger them either. These are all imperfect people trying to make the best decisions. And now I'm going to be objective. I'm always going to say the thing that people, oh, no, you got to pick a side.
Mhm.
No, I mean, we have to be objective because we're talking about the development of people, of children's brains.
Mhm.
Okay. And not every, it says a few bad apples spoil the bunch, not all. And so I'm very aware of that. And I always give everyone the benefit of the doubt because, of course, my belief has a lot to do with that I believe, yes, change can happen and it can happen overnight, but
Mhm.
change can only happen if the person actually repents. And that's where people miss that. Oh, this person has potential to change. Well, is the person willing to repent? You know,
Mhm.
uh, a drug addiction can only be addressed when the person's open to addressing it. You can put them in rehab all day, but if they're not willing to, talk about Bruno, then
Yeah, yeah.
it's nothing's going to get accomplished. You're just going around and around and around and expecting a different result, which is kind of insane.
And that's what family court is.
Hmm. It is definitely it's a circus.
Right. I also think the attorneys should have psych evals, and the judges and the attorneys should have random drug screens and lie detector tests to find out how much money they're dumping into judge campaigns.
We would love that, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But we're making all these suggestions, but we're not talking about the elephant in the room.
Mhm.
Who's going to enforce that?
Yeah, that has been the problem, especially with custodial interference laws on the books for the last 40 years. But these police officers are not trained on how to handle custodial interference.
And we don't have the judicial oversight, and we have immunity, so we have no consequences. So again, we can come up with all these wonderful laws to just keep throwing glitter on a pile of poop and say it looks beautiful, but it's not going to be anything if we're not spearheading this.
Hmm.
Where is the organization? Where is the department that's going to do internal affairs? Where is the department that's going to hold them accountable? Where is the department? We could suggest psychologicals for everyone. Who's going to enforce it? Who's going to look through each and every one of these cases and audit it and say, was it applied at the time that, okay, they can have the training too. Who's going to have the judicial oversight to make sure they're applying it? And who's going to follow up later on with the cases after the judgments are made? So
Right.
I think we need to just stop
Yeah, I agree.
and
I
get that
agree.
department in place before we implement anything else. I mean, there's no oversight, there's no consequences, there's nobody to answer to. And when you file complaints, you're filing complaints to people that they went to school with, or that they're in bar members with, or that, so who's going to go against you? It's kind of like being trafficked and you're complaining to the trafficker.
Mm, very true.
I mean, you're going to complain to the one that kidnapped you? You can cry about it? Like, what? So here we are, I'm being severed from my child. They're upset because April 9th, they took my child with no facts, findings, or conclusion of law.
Mm.
And then April 27th, they swore me in as a CASA. And the judge on my case is the first signature on my certificate. Her and the other judge are the ones that swore me in.
Oh,
So
that's
how do you say a person committed imminent danger and you don't even know who they are?
uh-huh.
And then they're relying on the guardian ad litem. Okay, well, let's talk about the guardian ad litem. She was arrested in 2019 for domestic violence and lost custody of her children and was appointed a guardian ad litem during the pandemic. So did she get a background check? Did she? I'm pretty sure they lessened the charges or it's expunged it, but the facts are the facts.
Mhm.
So now we have this person that, if you are to audit the cases, is siding the majority of the time with people who were the aggressors in domestic violence. Make that make sense? So I'm not one to throw stones, or I'm not trying to bash anybody or anything, but the facts are the facts. Let me tell you something. I personally, as a parent, don't feel that she's credible
Mhm.
to even oversee. My child deserves better. Period.
Mhm.
Give me your resumes and I'll tell you who needs to be presiding over this case for my son's best interest. Because again, I'm objective. This can stop right now if the adults would be adults and say, hey, we're not going to involve the government. We're not going to let them have their hand in the cookie jar. They're not. Right now, between my ex-husband and myself, we have spent so much money on attorney fees and me being garnished and extorted out of money that my son would have been set for life if we would have put that in a Roth IRA account or a trust or a whole life insurance policy. So what's the purpose of all of this? I'm sitting here like, what's the purpose?
I think the purpose is the Title 4D funding.
And power and control.
And yes, because 42 U.S. Code, get this, subsection 666, requirement of statutorily prescribed procedures to improve effectiveness of child support enforcement. Whoops.
666. Yeah, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, whoops. Hang on.
Mhm.
Where did that go? I just had it.
No, I know you're right. I'm
Oh, here it
familiar
is.
with it. Hmm.
So people can
Yeah,
see it. Yeah,
yeah.
that's where that's where their bread and
Excuse me.
butter is, and they don't care about these kids. They want someone to pay because you probably make more than him, as you know.
Nope,
No,
I don't. He has
but
unreported money,
oh, that's what mine did. Yeah, okay. Yep.
and his house is paid off, and everything's in his wife's name and a LLC.
You-
I'm the only one that can be garnished. That's where they were going at. So that's dollar for dollar. If you think about it, I'm not sure if it's dollar for dollar or 66 cents per dollar, but either which way they match it, pretty much. So when I lowered child support and signed off on arrears, that probably got them upset. That probably cut their money a little bit. So with that said, I mean, they're garnishing me. They inflated my income.
Mm-hmm.
I filed an informa pauperis, giving them all my receipts of everything I'm making, and they ignored it. And then it's so bad the way this case went down that I'm just like embarrassed for people. Like I'm literally embarrassed to even repeat it. Like it's so bad. Like Ray Charles could see this from across the street. You feel me?
Yeah.
just I'm like, are you serious right now? Like every time they would like threaten me or say they're gonna do something, I'm like, you can't do that, but I assume that's what you guys have been doing. So
Mm,
I guess that's, the business as usual, right? So when they told, so what happened was the magistrate abruptly retired
hmm,
on my case, and we did 1 day of trial with that magistrate, and then because I filed a complaint, what happened was that's like I just became a cop type of thing, and you just did the most to me. Like, so when I
yeah.
became a CASA after that, I filed a complaint listing all of the violations of Rule 48 that the guardian ad litem did. That
Mhm.
would make me a credible person to say it because I just came out of the training. So
Oh,
I think so they got upset, and the funny part about it is that the Voices for Children was telling me the director was like, "Don't mention that you're a CASA." I said, "What do you mean? The judge is on my case is the one that swore me in." Like both judges, the administrative judge they swore me in.
how crazy
Like,
is
what?
that?
Don't mention I'm a CASA. That didn't make any sense. I was like, "Are you guys okay?" Like at that point, I was
They're
just like
not.
wondering. So I was like, "Okay, whatever." So I followed the rules because I said, at the end of the day, I do want to be a CASA. I do want to help people make these decisions that are hard. Like it's not easy when you have to deal with someone. Look, if it, if we get along and say we like each other, we'd still be married, no?
Right.
Like we obviously don't get along, we don't like each other. I saw, we tried, it didn't work. Let bygones be bygones. That's it. Our focus should be our son. That's
Yeah.
it. Um, but unfortunately, so many different you know layers to this and different moving parts, pieces to this. You got third party where his now wife has just got this thing in for me, and I've never had a conversation with this woman. I've never had a conversation with this woman. I tried to initiate conversation before. I've tried in text message. I've emailed, her or text her, not email her, but text her and told her, hey, I got some Cedar Point tickets, the season tickets. I'll send it, because of the pandemic, we couldn't use it. So they extended it, like here. So don't go paying full price for your tickets because
Right.
you don't, I'm just that type of person. Like, hey, I still have here,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
your ticket, so, but no, it was like just that alone just caused so much anger towards me. Like, why are you mad? I'm not mad. My kid is smiling, like we're smiling, and there's no reason for us to be all upset. My son even came home and said she made the best mac and cheese. I
Mhm.
said, okay, like that's what's up, like
Right.
I don't know what to tell you.
Maybe she's
Uh,
jealous of you. Maybe she should have a psych eval.
I mean, she did testify and say some stuff that I leaned over to my attorney like, and I got the psyche. I
Oh,
just
I know.
like what? Like it was like she was so hostile towards my attorney too. My attorney, was just like, if you're this hostile towards me and I'm representing her, I could imagine how that goes down when you're, like he was just mind blown too. Like it was, but unfortunately, these attorneys they all work together. They make backdoor, you know, um, deals like, hey,
Mhm.
if you give me X, I'll give you Y. Just give me this win, I'll give you this win. You know what I mean? Like they're doing things because when my attorney was actually doing a good job, he was kept getting interrupted. Like, the other attorney was like, can I speak to my colleague for a minute? I need 5 minutes. We need 5 minutes. And he was getting like reprimanded and scolded. And that's not, let everybody do their job. Let's move forward. You know what I mean? Why
Right.
you gotta be, but not everybody knows their rights and their laws. And so I was forcing my attorney to assert the law and assert my rights. And he was under pressure for both, uh, you
Mm.
know, the opposing party counsel and his client. And so, I I don't know. The whole situation is just so mind blowing. But I did ask the judge. I asked the judge to recuse herself in February of 2024.
Mm, okay.
So the guardian ad litem was put on the case. Sorry to like flip back and forth, but September 22nd of 2023 was the first time I ever met the guardian ad litem, and she gave me a 1 hour interview. Now We're in November 2nd of 2025, and I only had that 1 hour interview with her, the whole case. So she was hounding me for like release of information. I have to get, so me being who I am, being raised military police and
Mhm.
and I'm in the medical field. When she was giving me her release of information, I was tweaking it to be HIPAA compliant.
Right.
So they started yelling and about it because they're like, oh, she's altering the release of information. No, I'm HIPAA compliant. So you
Mhm.
need a start date and you need an expiration date. That's HIPAA compliant. Because if this case closes tomorrow, or if this case, or she gets thrown off the case, or she quits, or tomorrow's not promised for any of us.
Right. Right.
Say somebody passes away that has a release of information, whatever the case may
Mhm.
be, there has to be an open and close date. Not a till oblivion. You don't put a date and then till the rest. No. So what I was doing is I was putting it where if we had a court date scheduled, I put the release of information from the date she requested it to the court date because she's supposed to put in her report or whatever her findings are 7 days before the court date.
Mhm.
It's not my fault that they're not doing their job.
Oh,
So then she went way after and she was like, I tried getting information and they said that it expired. That can't be. No, it is expired because it's been 7 months and you never requested any of those records.
mhm.
7 months. So it's like, so then it was like they were getting mad at me and I'm like, no, listen, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. Y'all guys do what you're supposed to do. I don't know
Right.
what to tell you. Um, and so they were trying to make it seem like, it was just wild. So when she did that, my ex-husband stopped coming to pick up his child when he moved in with his wife. So for like almost 2 months, he wasn't showing up. Uh, yeah, but he spoke to his son every day on FaceTime or calling because they had open communication. My son had his own phone.
Mhm.
And so I never questioned anything. If we were out and about and my son was like, oh, look, a cool car, Dad, like
Uh-huh.
that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
that I didn't even flinch about it because I'm like, he sees something cool. He wants to share a moment with his dad.
Mhm.
That's my belief.
Right.
My dad is, I'm a daddy's girl, and my
Mhm.
dad is raising my little sister alone right now, and he's in his 70s. So, so again, it's my culture, the way I was raised has a lot to do with the way I maneuver in life, and I always try to see, the a better outcome, I guess, of everybody and everything. Um, so
Mhm.
he stopped coming because he knew that those overnights needed to be addressed. He asked for them to vacate the zero contact because of his circumstances, but none of that has to do with the child. None of that has anything to do with my son and his safeguards. So it wasn't really being addressed. So that's why they asked for the GAL to come on the case because he knew that GAL was going to make jurisdiction when there isn't any jurisdiction because I come to find out later that my case was closed. They reopened it to force reunification of my son with a third party that's not even a party of the case.
That's crazy.
And the only reason that the reunification therapy was supposed to be that certain counselor that they requested
Mhm.
is because she was supposed to figure out a safety plan for my son, not force my child into reunification with the people who are not a party of the case.
Mhm.
So the whole thing's been misused. I mean, I have court order that states the safety of the child was supposed to be the plan. The use of that psychologist was to figure out the safety plan.
Mhm.
My logic to that was he already has a counselor. Why can't we just do it through the counselor that's been seeing him throughout this process?
Right.
Um, but they wanted their court person. They wanted their specific one that they choose. And so my ex-husband didn't show up. And then, the guardian at Lytton one day texts me and she's like, would you let him come and pick him up? I'm like, it's a court order, isn't it? I'm confused. And she's like, well, he was taken off of the final forms. I said, that's impossible. He wasn't taken off the final forms because he's been in that school for 3 years. We've never had this problem. So I know he's not taken off. And she was like, well, he's off now.
Mm.
Can you let him come pick him up? I said, there's a court order. What super final forms or a court order? Which one holds more water? I said, no, like you guys do what you need to do. I will make sure that I work accordingly to however this plays out. So basically, when they looked in there, the the after school program director looked it up and he was like, I don't feel comfortable with releasing this child now because I don't know what happened to this man. He hasn't been showing up, and he showed up the whole time this kid's been in school
Hmm.
and randomly just stopped showing up. So now you're telling me that this attorney comes in and starts asserting herself as though she's defending, instead of being a GAL, she's defending my ex-husband.
Hmm.
So he said, this is kind of weird, and I'm not, now it's a liability for us. So I would
Yeah.
prefer that we not release the child. But the narrative that they played out is that I didn't allow him to come get the child, which was later uncovered in the digital footprint that somebody manually went into the system and took him off. Oh, yeah. Not once, but twice.
I wonder who did that.
I have the name of the person who did that. And so I subpoenaed that person. And the city of Lorain had to get involved. The city schools had to get involved, in which that was disclosed that that was their error. But yeah, I'm still made as though I'm the one that kept him from his son. No, he chose to not show up. And whoever their little friend was that took him off, not once, but twice, I don't know. But, that's allegedly. I don't know if that's their friend or not, but it just seems to be very coincidental. I personally just put him back on because I had noticed every year I check to see what I need
Hmm.
to add, like if he needed any health, he gets his well checks or whatever.
Hmm.
So you upload those documents. And so every year I check it to upload, and I had saw that he was off, and I'm like, well, that's weird, and I just put him back on,
Hmm.
and so it didn't fit the narrative. So right before court, miraculously, the timing was that he was taken off again. So it was just a weird scenario. Everything that happens in the dark comes to light when you are a huge faith based person. So I believe that I literally have gotten receipts on things that I was just minding my business, and it just fell in my lap. Like, hey, here. I've had people that don't know me, call me randomly or send me a message like, hey, you spoke out. I'm so proud. Like, you finally somebody speaking out. Did you
Hmm.
know this? And I'm like, well, do you have receipts? Because I don't do the hearsay.
Right. Right.
And sure enough, I'm getting receipts, and I'm getting people, cheering for me because they're like, they silence us. They threaten us. You know what I mean? And you're over here just like letting
Mm.
it be known. But the way I let it be known is I actually put it in the documents, because there's
Hmm.
nothing that I'm not going to say that I haven't said already that hasn't been unfolded in the case if people actually read the case. So
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing too.
That's another podcast. Jeez. I mean,
Mhm.
this has been just horrible for you and your son, especially when a third party comes in and inserts herself into the co-parent relationship. That's what happened to me too. I can totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a little weird too because I'm sorry, when my mom and my dad got divorced, I was 14.
Hmm.
And I always joked around and said they divorced me because they spent more time together after the divorce. Because they were best friends. So I could honestly I could appreciate their relationship because they were always really good friends, which is the relationship I have with my first husband. My
Hmm.
first husband is like, I haven't spoken to him in forever, but when I do, we were best friends when we
Right.
married, and we were legally married for 12 years before we got divorced. But he found the woman that he found, and he had a child with her, so we got divorced so they could move on. It wasn't, I was never like, he was never a threat or anything where I'm like, oh my goodness, we gotta get divorced. Like, I was just like, live your life. We were young in our 20s. do you, boo boo boo, and and we just move about our business. So when he found the woman that he fell in love with and he wanted to have a baby, I'm like, knock knock, we got some documents you gotta fill
Yeah.
out. He was like, because we were always friends. One thing we always can agree on is that yeah, the kids is everything to us, even
Hmm.
though he had his shortcomings. The only reason I'm not married to my first husband anymore and that we broke up is because his brother introduced him to drugs and he
Mm.
ended up getting addicted. Um,
Aw.
and so I made the decision to be responsible with my children, and he was fighting those demons,
Mm.
So, but it was never a thing where I'm like, I can't, he didn't smoke, he don't do nothing in the home. When he has his kids, that's one thing too. Like whatever happens outside, but he
Mhm.
was never bringing that in the home. He wouldn't even smoke in front of them or anything or in the house.
Mhm.
So because we agreed to raise our children a certain way.
Right. And
Um,
you co-parented beautifully.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was all rainbows in there, of course, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
uh, but we both know how to be cordial for our child. And
Hmm.
we were both at, we've gotten into choice words, we've exchanged words before, but then we were at the baseball game, hands down. Everybody was present at the baseball games, everybody was cheering them on. We weren't being weird about it, you know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
yeah, we literally say what we had to say, and then as soon as the curtain opens, we're like, "Hi, yo, go!"
Yeah.
to our kid, and I'm like, "Don't talk to me right now," because, and he's like, "Yeah, those, but the kids never knew any of that because it was our kids were the focus. So regardless of whether or not he had his demons he was fighting, we were at my daughter's graduation. Everybody was there, so it was
Mhm.
never, there's ways to go about things,
Oh,
you
there
know.
there are. You
Mhm.
know, so what happens now in your case? What what goes on
Well, I
now?
asked the I asked the judge to recuse herself because I found out about conflicts of interest in February of 2024. She refused, and that's when everything started changing. And so they started acting really fast in the
Mm.
way they're doing things. The forensic psychologist, she claims she's a forensic psychologist, whatever type of psychologist she is. She
Yeah.
specializes in federal prison system and drug addiction. That's her thing.
Hmm.
And she's always put on family court cases.
Oh
So
God.
when we went there, she literally told me first thing she did when she came in the room was, "Come on, you'll be fine." She tells my son, and my son's like, "I don't want to go." And she was like, if you don't make your child go participate, I'm going to tell the courts you're not cooperating." That's a direct threat on me because if you tell the courts I'm not cooperating, that's me in contempt
Mhm.
and everything is on the line. And I was like, coercion? That's how you do your job is coercion?
What a
And she's
horrible
like, no,
thing.
this is not coercion. And I'm like, yes, it is coercion.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is. And she was like, I said, you just threatened me in front of my child.
Hmm.
Like, like, this is absurd. You shouldn't, as a professional, you should not be doing that. If he doesn't want to go, he doesn't want to go. I did what I'm supposed to do. He's in trauma-based therapy. He has a counselor.
Right.
This extra for a third party that's not even on the case should not be. I did my part. I brought him to his
Mhm.
his therapy session. Nobody wants to talk to his therapist that he currently has that says this is not in the best interest of the child. You know, I did my part. I brought him. What happens from here is between y'all. Like I did my
Right.
part. Don't come in the room and say, "Mom, if you don't force him, to I'm going to tell the courts you're not cooperating." Listen, listen.
Well, what she did is actually child psychological abuse, which is in
It
the
is. And her
DSM-5. Yep.
oath says do no harm,
Right.
doesn't it? So I filed a complaint against her too
Good.
with the psychology board. And the psychology board don't want to do nothing. Do you know she even charged my insurance and said that I was the client for like 2 sessions and charged my insurance? I filed a complaint about that too. They don't do
Good.
nothing. They don't do anything.
Mhm.
So, at the end of the day, I'm not going to stay shut. That's
Mhm.
one thing I'm not. Um, and I'm not going to allow them to do things and use shady practices to at the expense of us without me saying something. This is absurd to me. And I didn't come into the situation trying to be a casa totally oblivious to what the system is.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I would never go into something and not have some kind of foundation or understanding as to how it's supposed to go.
Mhm.
Now, coming across people that aren't doing what they're supposed to do is a whole different scenario. As for
And
me and my house, we shall serve the Lord.
right, right,
So
right.
I don't know what to tell anybody else. I mean,
I just try to warn people to stay out of there, but then when you get sucked into family court, it's like
I
you're
mean, you pay
dragged.
50, what do you pay? 50 something dollars for the marriage license, and then you're paying 550,000 to get out of it.
Right.
They don't disclose that.
No. Oh my
But
gosh.
what my divorce didn't do, this this custody case is, and it's not even custody because we signed 3 times over that we agreed with judge's signature, attorney's signature, parent's signature, that I have full custody with decision making. My son, he wanted less time originally in his visitation. He wanted less child support, and he wanted no arrears. Okay. But then you take my child because you want to play house with somebody else, and that's weird to me. I don't know. Like,
Does she have, okay, so she has a kid of her own
she has two.
too.
Hmm.
Huh. So there's something wrong that she would want your kid all the time.
I mean, in the Bible, it says you're not supposed to covet your neighbor's stuff. I mean,
Right.
that's a deeply rooted issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, again, I don't like to say anything where I'm like, oh, possibly insecurities. But if she was to really get to know, see, but you got to think about it. We have a manipulative, abusive man gets into a relationship. I'm pretty sure he sold her some kind of piece of story that is obviously not going to be the story. But he also knows the person that I am. So I know so much about him that he knows that I would be team wife.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you don't want 2 women against you, you know what
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing too much. And in all reality, I really don't care. As long as my child is happy, what they do in their life is what they do in their life. It's none of my business. It's when my son started coming home and walks to the door and asks me to baptize him immediately. Yeah.
Hmm.
And he never disclosed what happened. And they're like, oh, she's making this up. If I was making it up, I would have had way more details. And I would have definitely blamed somebody that could actually go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? That's too much work to be lying. You got to keep up with that lie. I'm not that type of person. I'm just like, listen, that's why I moved here to teach my kids how to be self-sustaining I'm not with all this drama. I really am not. It's not even, it wasn't part of my plan at all.
Right. Right. Yeah, because I mean, I think you're too nice. And I've had people come on the podcast and say, this stuff happens to people that are too nice, they're too honest. And
I can be on I'm not too nice. According to my documents, I'm not too nice.
yeah.
I definitely call it out
Oh, yeah, I
in
was
writing.
calling it out too. And then they flip it and they still say,
Mhm.
I actually have it in a transcript that a judge told me because I was standing up for myself and I explained that being a registered nurse, I was a patient advocate. I'm going to advocate for myself. They
Right.
didn't like that. In his closing, he said, "You think you have to advocate for yourself?" It's like, oh, he needs a psych eval.
Well, they definitely, a lot of them have a God complex. And then that comes with the immunity. I
Mhm.
mean, they can never do no wrong, right? I
Right.
mean, I could tell you by the cases that I've looked up, they've done a lot of wrong to people. When you have a parent reaching out to you and showing you pictures of their child on life support, or you're getting calls from parents and they're like showing you videos of the parent hitting the child to the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and when there's an order that says no corporal punishment, and they're reaching out to me, and you can't unsee that,
Right.
you know, and it's mind-boggling that, but again, I'm not hating the players, I'm hating the game, and it's the game that's the problem. So it's like, coming from my upbringing, and being in New York City, and my family being as educated as they are, and being, I had to always stick up for myself somehow, some way. So I was too suburban for the hood and too hood for the suburban.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was too, so I tend to be more hanging out with the older crowd, um,
Yeah.
and stuff growing up. So I tend to I was around politicians all the time. I understood,
Mm-hmm.
things that the normal child wouldn't. And it took me all these years to realize that not everybody has this knowledge. See, I was thinking it was my regular, everybody knows this, but
Yeah.
nothing about my upbringing was kind of normal when it comes to that, because I was way ahead. Like, for one,
Mm-hmm.
Jehovah's Witnesses. I will never change a way I was raised with Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm so glad that I had that discipline and training from them on
Mm-hmm.
how to read the Bible, and how to go out there and preach the word, and how to, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't change anything. Not even my mother, even though
Mm-hmm.
she got on everybody's nerves.
Yeah. Oh.
um, um, I wouldn't change any of it, because it made me who I am today, and what I learned through growth, and my spiritual beliefs, and my, you know, that you need to take the good with the bad, and decipher what it is that you want to learn from the lesson. So if I don't like my mom's temper, I'm not going to have that temper. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't like my dad, if my dad's too passive, I'm not, so you got to give and take, because I'm a hybrid of both.
Right.
And so they
Right.
both had something to offer. And so that's why I taught my son that as well. And the same thing with my oldest son. My oldest son came up to me, he's 23 years old, he'll be 24. And he told me, Mom, like, I ain't even mad at my dad. Like, my dad will periodically call me and talk to me, and like nothing. And I have not an ounce of upset with him, because you were always honest with me,
Mm-hmm.
and you never allowed me to hate him. Like, you never fed into that and said anything. He's like, the only thing I remember is you always saying, if your dad didn't have the habit that he had, we would still be married.
Mm-hmm.
But I made my decisions, and he made his
Mm-hmm.
decisions, and I'm not going to hate him for it, because when the time came down and my daughter needed to be with her dad,
Mm-hmm.
he opened his doors every time. And it was, so, um,
Yeah.
and I could communicate with his wife. So I could always appreciate that, that he always chose somebody that he knew. If maybe we didn't agree, there was a third person that was actually going to be looking out for the well-being of the child. It was like that third neutral, good influence, so we
So,
always had that understanding.
yeah. Now, have you seen your son since April?
No, I haven't seen my son. Okay, so they took him. My visitation has been a stipulation to paying the guardian ad litem fee. So that's always the bargaining tool. So if I don't pay the guardian ad litem, or I can't afford the guardian ad litem, now it's like, we're not going to do anything to reunify you with him. And
Oh.
then when I did get him unmonitored, he was at the library, and the guardian ad litem was supposed to monitor, and she's supposed to show up to observe. She's never observed my child. So I emailed her like, hey, can you come, because he's starting to tell me things, and I think it's important that
Mhm.
I don't get this information alone. Like, maybe you come, observe, see what. And instead, it was this whole, like, I'm not going to show up. We're just going to play this he said, she said, and go back and forth, and this whole game. I'm a facts type of person. I'm not, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Out of the mouth of babes and out of the horse's mouth. I'm that type of person. So if a
Yep.
person's giving information, we need to all be at the table, so that we all understand this at the same time. So what happened was, my son started disclosing a lot of things, and I started reporting it back to the guardian ad litem. She started getting upset, because they haven't um, sabotaged our relationship, to where he's still sharing things with me, because I'm still his safe person.
Mhm.
And so I guess they're trying to, like, sabotage that relationship, so that way he's not opening up about what's happening in the house. And so he's telling me these things, and I'm like, hey, I try to reach out to the guy. I said, there's no case in here that I mean, I would think there's no case that a parent's begging the guardian ad litem to do their job. Like, I don't, so I told her, and she said, okay, I'll be there. And then she did a no call, no show. But miraculously, she doesn't show up, but my ex-husband shows up with his wife, and they start something. It was a whole, so I wrote her and I'm like, hey, you should have been here, because then this and this happened, and
Right.
and then so it was a whole back and forth, and now I'm the problem. And listen, nobody got time for that. Like, I really don't have time for this whole, if you're going to say I'm the problem, show me I'm the problem, show me something. So what happened was, I ended up, my son was disclosing some stuff on the last time that I saw him, and I recorded it. So I recorded it because she don't want to believe me. So I'm like, I'm going to bring this to guardian ad litem, because this is regular conversations, and he's just letting me know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that said, I had told my attorney, and I told him, this needs to be disclosed, and I need transparency. I'm done with this. Like, you can obviously see by the way I'm speaking or whatever, and I'm not coaching. He's just disclosing things, and I'm just, where I have no words, I have no words. I'm just silent, and he's just opening up. So basically we went to court. His attorney brought it up like it's a problem, and they're saying Ohio Revised Code says that you shouldn't be using to influence the case. I said, I'm not influencing the case. I want transparency of the case, because she's not willing to observe me with my child. So if she hasn't observed me, and she's had this case for nearly 2 years, and she's never observed me with my child, how is she supposed to be making an informed recommendation to the court as the eyes and ears for you? I'm not understanding where you guys are coming from. And I understand it was a little pushy, or, bound, it's riding the gray area line. But again, it's, it's a way, under the ADA, I'm in the capacity to protect my son. So I do have rights, because a lot of things are not happening that's supposed to be happening. And you want to, again, I didn't abandon my post,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the one being blamed for their shortcomings. I don't know what to tell you. So
Mm-hmm.
they got mad, because they're like, well, you're not supposed to record it. A child. I said, I didn't record a child. I recorded, in the state of Ohio, who's a one party recording state. As long as you're a part of that, that's the law. I recorded it because he's disclosing stuff that I needed to bring to the guardian ad litem. She's like, well, why didn't you come? I said, listen, I'm not fighting
Oh.
here with you. You're being contentious with me. I'm not gonna do this. This is what it is. Take it or leave it. You don't accept it, you accept it. I mean, we all know you guys can say you won't accept it, so it doesn't have to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But to say, he's like, well, I'm concerned now that you're recording your son. I mean, who's monitoring me? You guys are over here blaming me for things. They even went as far as blaming me for pulling a fire alarm at the doctor's office so that the session doesn't go on. That's funny, because I saw that coming, and I have absolute evidence that I was nowhere near that, but the guardian ad litem was actually the one by the fire alarm,
Oh.
because the doctor told us. She came in and she was like, oh, the fire department's going to come and they're going to tell us to leave. So we have to reschedule. And I was like, okay. And she's like, and the guardian ad litem's checking. What is she checking in her pencil skirt and stilettos? I'd
Mm.
like, if somebody pulls the fire alarm and it's set up to ambush us or something, like, what is she gonna, is she our bodyguard now? Like,
Yeah.
I just thought, what is she checking? Is she checking if the coast is clear for the person who did pull the fire alarm, or did she pull the fire alarm? That's the questions I want to know.
That is the question.
So when he emailed me on Our Family Wizard, he's like, nice one, tell your son, good one, trying to blame it on my oldest son. We were all in the room together with
Oh.
the door closed. They always confine us to like a room while they're all talking. The walls are thin. You can hear all of them talking like they're all friends. And I didn't understand it, but I'm from New York, so I know a setup when I see one.
Mm-hmm.
So I have evidence. I do have evidence that I was in that room with both my children, and that the door was closed, because you can hear the difference between the door opening and the door closed. And when the alarm started going off, I even asked my son, "What's that?" And he goes, "Oh, that sounds like the fire alarm." So how am I the one that pulled the fire alarm if I'm asking what's that?
Right.
So basically, they tried to blame it on my son, and my son responded, "That's the fire alarm." So obviously, neither one of us are by the fire alarm. So this is what the guardian ad litem ran to the courts with on her affidavit, stating that my child was in imminent danger and that I committed emotional harm. And that's one of the incidences that she listed. I said, okay, well, I got receipts to prove that that's not what happened, and so I'm cleared of that too. But every time I get cleared of something, it's like they don't want to hear it. They just push out the court dates. The trials are pushed
Oh,
out 6 months, 4 months, three. Everything's pushed out, pushed out, pushed out.
always. Yep.
And so, now it changes the material circumstance of making it seem like, oh, well, he didn't die. He's in the house and he didn't die, so he should be fine in his dad's house. No, well, I can tell you right now, as of today, that my son's health is declining. He went from excessive weight gain to having diagnosis with his counselor that he doesn't have. I have a letter that wasn't told to me that they even had. My attorney didn't even tell me that he had the letter from his current counselor. And the counselor stated that they have to maneuver and deal with like his grief and his sad feelings of being separated from his other parents. So
Mm.
why does a child have to go through grief and and these are all court created problems,
Uh-huh.
not the parents. You know what I mean? Necessarily, the courts are creating this problem because he wasn't diagnosed with that when he was with me,
Right.
and he was in counseling.
Oh,
So now he has a diagnosis, and now I was told that he has a diagnosis of something that can possibly, if not monitored correctly, can cause kidney damage or kidney failure.
oh my goodness.
And the guardian ad litem's nowhere in the picture. She's not even responding. They keep putting her on Our Family Wizard. Oh, I'm including the guardian ad litem, using her as a shield when that shouldn't be the way she's being used anyway.
Hmm.
Um, it's been just an ongoing. I'm sorry, and I'm going to say this very bluntly. My child deserves better, and everyone on this case has been pretty incompetent. So I now it got to the point where all of a sudden the conflicts of interest are admitted by the judge. She's off the case. Then they went and transferred it to another judge, which she said is conflicts of interest. So now she's off the case, and they're saying that a visiting judge has to see the case. If a visiting judge sees the case, I mean, it's obvious that all of these orders are void, because if the conflicts of interest were existing from the beginning, then that makes everything void.
Hmm.
And everything that's been happening is obvious that it's one-sided. I'm the only one being garnished. I'm the only one being, all of his stuff is approved. And it's just so blatantly obvious. I don't have to do much.
Hmm.
It's so bad that the Child Support Enforcement Agency attorney had to intervene and state that the order that they put in making guardian ad litem fees child support is unlawful. They have no way of enforcing guardian ad litem fees through the Child Support Enforcement Agency. But now my thing with that is, if he did it like that, that means they've been doing this, because nobody just goes in guns blazing like that if they're not comfortable with doing that business practice.
Right.
So now that opens up a whole nother Pandora's box, because if you think about it, now they need an audit on that. How many times have they turned guardian ad litem fees into child support?
Wow.
So it's like, okay, so why am I still being garnished at the amount that's excessive to enforce? And then they even put that I have arrears now at the amount of the guardian ad litem fees. Everything's matching up to what her fees are. But yet I have no receipts on what she actually did in this case. And when she did give me a bill, it didn't even add up. And then she stated that she looked over his therapy, um, his therapy records, but I have something from the therapy place stating she never requested the records. So why are you billing on your bill that you went over medical records that you never retrieved? Or did you retrieve it from a third party, which is a violation of HIPAA? You can't retrieve records through a third party.
Oh, this is terrible.
So
Terrible.
this is just at the end of the day, this has to come forward. This is why I'm coming out in the open because I want to be that person. Since they already put me in the fire, they
Right.
already put me in danger. I'm literally grabbing the bull by the horns. Then I want everybody to understand that we the people are above the court system. And they make it seem the other way around because they hold you in contempt or they threaten you or they make you a criminal. You can't make me unfit. You can't make me a criminal. Like, and this is all they've been doing ever since they took my son. They've been making me look like I'm unfit. Oh, she can't afford this. I can afford my tax bracket perfectly fine. Now
Oh,
I can't afford a judge's tax bracket or an attorney's tax bracket in which I filed the proper documents to state I can't do that. So in all reality, I mean, it just takes for somebody to actually read the case because everything that I had to say is in writing. I put it to preserve the record. I mentioned everything. And now it's like, where are we? We're kind of like up in limbo now because these orders are most likely not even valid orders. My son's health is declining, in which my ex-husband is making decisions with his wife over my son's well-being, and they're telling me I can't be there. So if in fact this gets worse and my son ends up fatally, critically, forever damaged, um, then yeah, I want to hold everyone accountable. And Ohio's very dangerous right now. They have a bill that they're trying to pass called SB
mm,
174, and it sounds good. It
mm.
sounds good, but there's a needle in the haystack. 415 pages, and the main goal is to give the courts complete discretion.
Right. Because a bunch
Look
of
at what they're
judges,
doing with broad discretion. Look what they're doing to my child and
right,
myself
right.
with broad discretion.
Because the judges got together on this bill and wrote it.
25 years ago. So this is an outdated 25-year-old case. So this is my observation. This plan was made 25 years ago. And now that the people are waking up and fighting back, they want to make it into law to avoid the accountability. Because we also have the coalition to end qualified immunity. Now, if that goes through, guess what? Guess what? So, but if they give them complete discretion before that qualified immunity is done, then we just allowed them to infiltrate again and block accountability. So if you think about it, complete discretion means that it doesn't matter if they mention domestic violence victims. They put this whole thing like we're all looking out for the safety and well-being of the child first. But with complete discretion, you could still have your perception and you could still have your interpretation that has been developed through your upbringing and your traumas and your experience and your bias. And you're going to put that into your judgments. And
Mhm.
because it's complete discretion, now I can't even appeal.
Terrible.
So we're not even talking about the elephant in the room. So they can go ahead and do 415 pages of saying, oh, we're doing this for the victims. No, there's already laws that exist that
Hmm.
they should be doing for the victims. But I
Hmm.
can tell you right now, as someone who's gone through this system, these domestic violence organizations ain't nothing but a yellow pages for victims. You go to them for help and they say, oh, you need legal help? You need an attorney? Yeah, can you help me do that? Go to the Bar Association and go over to the legal aid. I could have told myself that. Google could have told me that.
Right,
How much?
right.
How many millions of dollars did you get to give me a 411 or 211? We don't have payphones anymore, but back in the day, my age, you go and you press 211 or 411, it gives you all the information. Or you open up a yellow pages and you find out. I don't need an organization making millions of dollars off taking from my social security fund with my social security number, my date of birth, and you're putting me on this roster as though you're doing something for me.
Oh,
And all you're doing is leading me to the Lion's Gate and saying, hope it works out for you.
I'm
Like,
really,
and if they're witnesses, what are they witnessing? Because they can't even say anything, they can't report anything, they can't give you legal advice. They're just there as what? An extra voice that's going to be silenced, or an extra voice to be that deal breaker that the courts did what they're supposed to do, and
yeah.
you just need a psychological. So it's a game. I don't want to play
Yeah,
this game. I don't agree to the game. Um, and again, until we take away their immunity and say they can lose their job just like anybody else,
right.
and that they can be held accountable just like anybody else, um, this is never going to end, and it's only going to get worse. Our children are being led to the slaughter. They're finding children right now that are being trafficked, and they're finding that 90% of the trafficked children are trafficked through the court system. That's a problem.
That is, yes, yes.
That's a problem. And as me being a witness of how they handle things in a court of equity versus a court of law, I'm just mind blown because even my own family who are military and police kept telling me, let the evidence speak for itself. Let the evidence. Well,
Oh,
that's funny.
yeah, they don't
Because
look at evidence.
and when you bring the evidence, they retaliate.
I'm
I
so
don't know.
glad I had you on. I'm so glad you brought up Ohio's SB 174.
It's absolutely dangerous. I'm sorry. I'm going to stand up for that all day, every
Right.
day.
I
You
agree.
400, and you know what broke my heart is as I was reading 415 pages, and then I had to even do it in audio because I'm like, I'm an audio visual, and I'm like, it don't look right on paper. It don't sound right. It's absolutely absurd. All it did was trigger me to feel like I'm back in an abusive relationship. That's all
Oh,
that bill does. Because if you think about it, when you're in an abusive relationship, what do they always say? I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. Please trust me, I'll never do it again. So by them mentioning all these victims, oh, we're gonna make sure that we prioritize the safety of the children, but we want complete discretion to do so. We're gonna mention the domestic violence, but we need complete discretion to do so. Like, no, you don't. No, you
mm-mm.
don't. We actually just need the law, and you need
Right,
to follow the law in order to implement that. But see, and it's what does the devil do? He mocks you.
right.
And that whole entire bill is literally mocking us. And I've even had mothers who didn't understand, like yell at me, like, I'm starting to be concerned on the people that you're aligning with. I said, I'm aligning with my Lord and Savior.
Mm-hmm.
And my Bible says that you're not supposed to raise people double-minded. And so, with that said, I'm reading this bill and it's literally a flippy floppy fish. Which
Mhm.
one is it?
I interviewed Elizabeth McNeese, who was
Oh,
talk.
yeah, she's amazing. I met
Yeah.
her. She's absolutely
Oh,
cool,
wow,
man.
you got to meet her. Yeah,
I
she.
did get to meet her when I went in opposition. I testified in front of legislation against SB 174. Yes, I did.
Oh, I'm so glad.
And I met her.
Well, I'd like to have you back on for an update whenever you're ready.
I mean, yeah, I pray that sooner than later we do. I have to keep this open. So far the case has been nothing but an abuse of power. My
Yeah.
son has declined in his health, mentally, physically. And yeah, there's key players in this. As a CASA, I know that you're supposed to go in rotation. So it's whoever's up next on the list when you choose GALs and CASAs.
Hmm.
But what I found is that they specifically request certain guardian ad litems in the
Mm,
schoolhouse, and then they appoint it, and then the bills don't even match up. Like it's just weird. It's got to be had, and I asked my son, because they put me back to supervised visits, but they want me to supervise visits with the same therapist that threatened me. So what they do is they make you go back to that therapist so that the therapist can pink slip you or say that you need to lose your parental rights because you're a danger, or so it's just another extra person. And so with that said, just to disclose, I had 3 assessments with 3 different organizations who cleared me of any mental illness, and I paid for a forensic psychologist who has
mm.
way more credentials than the therapist that they're forcing me to go see.
Ah,
And he cleared me of any mental illness, and he also said that I'm good to parent. I'm good at for parenting. I'm clear for parenting, and he put that I was very intentional, and I was like, finally, somebody gets me. I
yeah. Oh my goodness.
I am intentional. If I ask a question, I'm I'm most likely wanting to see where your head's at when
Right.
I ask a question. And again, that comes from my upbringing from military and police.
Yeah.
It's just the way I was raised. And my uncle was a lawyer and he was a assemblyman. So um, I don't know what to say, but to say the truth. And I just pray and hope now that when my son's health declining and denying me the ability to be there to make decisions for my son's health with no court order stating proving my unfitness or anything.
Oh,
We can only see where this goes. But if we can follow up sooner than later, would
oh,
be great because I do have to keep this open communicate. I want this open for people to come to me now who understand that I'm in the fire. I know exactly how these um, parents what they're going through.
mm,
As somebody who trained to have to become a CASA, which I was hoping for, but they won't let me now. They're like,
yeah.
keep her out of the building.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
um, I still am an advocate. They can't take that from me. I'm
Right.
still an advocate. I'm still gonna yell to the rooftops, and I will come with solutions, and I will bring things to Lorain that will help people. So that's in the works as well. So
How can parents reach you if they want to talk to you?
they could always reach me on Facebook. It's Amill Nikki, Nikki, Nicole. So I did it backwards, my name, then my nickname, but I did it backwards. Amil Nikki Nicole. I'm not hiding. I'm not gonna fudge anything or try to hide anything.
Mhm.
They know they can find me there, and they can find me by my email. It's my last name, Amill, Amill, Y as in Yankee, N as in new, uh, and 111 at gmail.com.
And I'll put that in the podcast notes. But hey, Nicole, don't jump off, okay? Uh,
Yeah.
Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms even I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you so much, Nicole. I totally appreciate you speaking out. This is very important to know about SB174. Thank you so much.
Oh, and just before we go, they're asking for written testimonies again in opposition. You have to fill it out and submit it by Tuesday, because they're also going to have another hearing on Wednesday. So if people can show up this Wednesday coming up and submit their testimonies by Tuesday in opposition, it would be in everybody's best interest. It breaks my heart because as a survivor and knowing survivors, it kind of taunted me and mocked me, and it hurt my heart that they're using that to try to manipulate and push this complete discretion. But the
Yeah.
only way I would ever accept this bill is if they get rid of the complete discretion and actually implement oversight, accountability, mandatory training, and safeguards.
And where do people go if they want to testify?
I will actually share with you. I'll send it to you if you want to share it on your thing. I'll send the link. Because Elizabeth McNeese, she's the one that sent me the email so that I
Okay.
can stay up to date. So I'll send that to you. I'll forward that to you, and then you can share, and I'll share it on my page and Facebook.
Yeah, I'll put
But
it in
yeah,
the podcast notes, definitely.
any parent could come to me. If they're in Ohio and they're within a 2 hour radius of my house, I'm willing to drive in to their court dates if they need support, somebody to go there with them. That's what I'm going to start. Some court watchers needs to happen here. So if not, we need to
Definitely.
start getting people together, and it's mothers and fathers. Everyone needs support when our constitutional rights are being violated and civil rights are being violated.
Yes,
We need eyes and ears on this.
definitely. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.